A well should be inspected and tested every 3 years, 2 to 3 years, and definitely get the water test so you know what what we're coming up against, so everybody knows how to protect what we have. Keeping up with well maintenance, there's a lot of things that go with it. You want to make sure that we don't introduce bacterias, any kind of stuff that, rodents getting wells, snakes getting wells. We want to keep that out of a well because that also will affect other wells downstream. The key thing is when you walk up, you kind of see the obvious. It's more than a foot out of the ground.
Okay.
The conduit, you can see it from there. A little bit's been mowed, been taken care of. And we'll walk up a little farther and I'll kind of show you some different things.
What am I looking for?
We'll make sure that if it's plugged. Most wells under 50 gallon minute do not need a vent.
Okay.
But it's good to have a vent on a well. So I always recommend leave the vent on unless it's less than a foot above ground. The best thing to do is either plug it or make sure that it's always clean.
Okay.
The next thing I always look at is the conduit. You want to make sure that this conduit is not broke. You can see where the lawnmower bumped it a few times and stuff like that, but you want to make sure that's not broke.
Okay.
Now this white pipe, in the state of Nebraska, we have a curb stop on every well. That's mandatory since 2016.
Okay.
So there's a curb stop down there that we shut off when we have to work on the well to keep anything coming from the pressure tank, a hydrant, whatever, from coming back into the well.
And that's what the curb stop does?
Yes. Yep. The next thing you do is you look at the bolts, make sure they're all good there, they're all four there. That's a good thing.
What if one of the bolts or a couple of the bolts are ajar or somewhat loose?
I would replace them. I would replace them because in this thing here, you want it sealed watertight.
Okay.
And that's the way you want it. I mean, I've seen a lot of wells with one bolt break, and it does happen. But when you have all four, you've got a good seal, a proper seal.
Why would one break or one?
A lot of times these have been sitting there and they get rained on, water on, and you got to take aluminum to a bolt that's just a galvanized bolt.
Right.
They'll rust. So normally when we repair, pull a pump out, we always put pipe dope or some kind of a sealant or anti-seizing sealant on them so we can get them out the next time.
Okay.
Kind of like the wellhead that we saw out there.
Okay.
That's an unburied part of it.
Okay.
You always like to be a foot. They always say discharge, you call a 4-foot bury, so come here and find your 4-foot bury.
Okay.
Of course your discharge is down at the bottom. So and that connects to your well casing, whether it's plastic, stainless steel. Yeah, it's a big. You got a nice cap.
So the difference between this one and the one we just saw is that one needs its own separate.
Yes, it needs its own. It has a pressure tank because this has a pressure tank inside. You can put a variable speed drive in here. You can set this up with a pressure switch. This is a little more versatile. That one you're limited just to hooking up to the well. There's nothing more you can do with it.
Is it easier to maintain versus that one? Which one is preferable to you with all your experience if you were to have your own house?
Okay, if you have a weekend cabin, how I'd answer that is if you have a weekend cabin, this is the kind of thing you'd want.
Okay.
Because everything's inside here, you can shut it off and destroy it. It's pretty low maintenance inside here. The other style would be if you have a house with a basement and you're living there all the time, I would definitely have that one over this one. Just because of the accessibility, maintenance wise, things that you have, your pressure tank, you can put a bigger pressure tank in the basement. There's a lot more to it, which will be a lot better. So. But for like the guy who has a livestock well in a pasture, this is perfect because everything can be inside contained and not have to worry about it. Well owners should know more about where their well, what the water comes from, how to protect what they've got, keep as much debris, trees, growth, bushes, stuff away from that because that all adds into what goes in the groundwater. Well owners get surprised the most is when we do a water well test of what they have and they find out that there's something, like an E. coli or coliform or nitrate or a broken conduit, like the wellhead might be leaking, stuff like that.
What's the worst thing that a well owner has come to you with this? They run it over with the lawnmower?
I've had guys run them over with shredders, I've had them run over with pickups, snow plows,
Okay.
I've had a lot of wells run over.
Is that the most common?
Yes,
Okay.
Yep.
What are some of the least common things?
The least common things I see is, you'll see what, like you say, a bolt broke off here, the vent might be missing, this might be broke. A lot of guys use plastic. I myself like aluminum because it seems like it holds up just a little bit better. I'm a little personal preference. I'm trying to maintain what we got for groundwater, not getting sources of bacteria in it. A lot of wells we see, if people don't do a lot of things with the wellhead, we see a lot of pumps that are 30, 40 years old. They're still in really good shape. The wellhead's still in pretty good shape. A lot of people take these off and they pour bleach in these things, and that's really hard on them. I always recommend call your well person, have them come do what they need to do, because they know how to bypass all the internal parts in here to keep it from rusting. High schoolers should know a lot about wells. We should teach them a little bit more about where it comes from, how it's drilled, how much work's behind it, and it's a good career for some kids that need the hands-on. This would be a perfect opportunity.